comes to talking about shapes and their meanings. You know, that, as I said, like sacred geometry, um, in pre-Adamic civilizations, it was a way we, the circle represented a insignia of the things that were innate or natural in our reality. Um, the circle was considered like an heirloom, um, of what we contributed to the reality. Okay. Um, circle represented the circle represented an insignia of things that we held dear and we held sacred, such as celestial bodies, the moon, the sun. I would even say orbs. Orbs were very common. That was a common thing back then. Um, Another thing would be, it's probably one of the oldest geometric symbols. The circle represented unity, wholeness. Um, as I said, more modern modalities of spirituality, they'll say it represents completeness. I I disagree with that, because when we talk about something being complete, it starts with a point A and a point B, a start and a finish. And a circle doesn't have a break. Okay. So you have a lot of new age and spiritual communities will say that, the circle represents completion. And in our pre-Adamic civilizations and culture, um, there was no such thing as, or we didn't correlate the circle as a symbol of completion. The circle represented infinity. Um, Pythagoras, which, yeah, I guess for people that know me, they know that I, cite some of his things. I just don't like the fact he doesn't give credit where he gets it from. But he called the circle the monad. Okay, and in pre-Adamic civilizations, we looked at that as the most perfect of creative forms, without a beginning or end. It doesn't have any sides. It doesn't have any corners. I'm saying, and the circle also represents, or is associated, according to some modalities, as the number one, which, I mean, that can be argued. It also represented enlightenment. It also represented perfecting. Okay. Um, Another thing I could say is, in reference to occult practices, it represented a guardianship or a shield or protection, especially when it came to supernatural dangers and outside influences that were threats. Okay. It also represented keeping, you know, protecting uh, something of value on the inside of reality. The woman's womb is circular. Okay. Um, you have some animals, according to what emotion they're in, they'll take their tail and, make a circle, even though it has a beginning and end. But even there's an innate nature, even in some animals, okay, that understands the power and the symbol of the circle. Okay. It also represents a cycle of rebirth, um, regeneration. It also represents the everlasting. Okay, um, represents the timelessness of time. Um, the infinity symbol is a circle. Okay, also equates with the sun symbol. So the the circle represents the first. I don't want to say the first, but I'll say the first in reference to the understanding. When I gave when I explained the mystery of time, preliminary, when I explained the mystery of time, when I said we have time, and then we have eternity, and then we have the everlasting. Okay. Um, Universally and multiversally, it represents the sun and the moon. And so the circle also represents the dot, which is the abyss. Okay. The circle, yes. Yes. So when we talk about even when we talk about the element of spirit, you know, um, it's above the symbol is even above superior. The circle represents the limitless. Okay. The elements, circle usually represents the elements as well. All right. What comes the spin-off circle represents the everlasting, and then when the circle abases itself, or the symbol abases itself to I'll say understanding, or to explain lower planes or lower dimensions, then you have to talk about the spiral. Okay. And the spiral is the circle that have the circle, or the energy of the circle, the element of the circle, or the insignia and symbol of the circle has came in eternity and time. And that's a curve that starts at a point in the center and curls around to a larger circle. Talking about centric circles. And those are also related to symbols. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it can consist of like a set of nested like circles together. A lot of times you find that in nature. So the circle represented all of the things that doesn't have a beginning or end, but that those things, entities, realities that didn't have a beginning or end, that created realities that do. The spiral would be the byproduct. That's why you find it in nature, such as shells, um, uh, um, you find it in rocks. You find it in when you cut trees. In the middle of trees, you find the spiral trees. You find that in flowers. So the circle is very significant. Okay, and when we talk about the triangle, okay, of course, that's a symbol that's been hijacked. Well, let me close this door. I'm sorry about that, family. So when we talk about the triangle, as the Western world has kind of hijacked um, the triangle, and that um, The equilateral triangles are most used in, I have to say, bootleg occults, and also in different modalities of Christianity and Catholicism. They accosted the triangle to represent their Trinity, or their Godhead. Um, Pythagoras, y'all know that I'll always make mention to him sometimes. It's also associated with the number 3. Okay. And it's very meaningful to authentic occult groups and the bootleg ones, as a lot of us know of today. Triangles are a 3-part symbol. Okay. Triangles represent the totality of time, eternity, and the everlasting. It also represents the past, the present, and the future. In pre-Adamic civilizations, that's what we looked at triangles as. Triangles represented the totality of reality, seen, unseen, known, unknown. Okay. Also represented the spirit that existed in our realities, the minds and the bodies. Okay. Doubling back a little bit, the circle also represents the infinite souls. Okay. So triangles represent other species and entities that are not souls, which is spirit, mind, and body. All right. Um, some occults, authentic and not, or not, um, they use the triangle to um, to supplement the different aspects of them that may not be eligible for certain dimensions, or to um, glean help, advice, knowledge from other dimensions. Um, the points up and point down triangles, that's when you have the 2 triangles together, where it points up. Triangles represent a strong foundation, stability. It also represents the elements of earth and water, because so is above, so is below. All right. Um, the triangles that are pointing upwards also stands for, or represents ascension. Okay. When a triangle points up, um, it also represents male, divine, masculine energy. Okay. And fire and air are masculine elements. Okay. When the circle is pointed downward, that, of course, that represents female energy. It also represents water and, earth and water, but it's water is at the top and earth is at the bottom. It's also the symbol for air and fire. Okay. It also represents descending into a physical world. Okay. When you put them together, point to point, that represents, well, that for pre-Adamic civilizations eons ago, it represented sexual union, and it was also the symbol for harmony in reference to sexual union. Intersecting points, point up and point down, that's when you start getting into hexagrams, and things like that. Okay. When we talk about the square, um, the square is associated with the number 4. Okay. And that number across several cultures. It's common, it's associated with material things, physical elements. It also represents the compass of directions, and the seasons. Okay, and they're used in the material world. You know, um, when they say box in. Okay, that's why we have a bunch of boxes that sits on top of the natural reality. I'm sitting in a box right now, which is a room. I'm sitting in my room, which is a box. The house I live in is a box. So um, they are the symbols of the material world. Um, Also represents physical, solidness. Um, Also represents volume. You know what I'm saying? And it's the symbol for space. Um, Squares to us represented solidity, um, dependable, earthly material. It also represented a cosmic order that was brought to Earth. Okay, it represents the balances of opposites. Okay, in the Native American, what they call Native Americans today, which I already kind of gave y'all the background on the real history about that. It was a symbol for permanence. We looked at the square as a symbol of a safe place. Okay, square also represented Earth. All right, it was a place for culture. Excuse me, camaraderie, community. Okay, so I can go into more, but I'm just kind of giving you guys a brief overview of um, again, the Western world has accosted the square, and the square also represents, these are the things that it represented in our pre-Adamic civilizations, but the square today, it also represents severing energy. 90 degree angles sever energy. Okay, so this is another shape that they accosted and used some of our occult knowledge in a perverse way in order to control and mentally terraform people so that they can be beholding to them based on illusion. So the square represents um, severing energy. That's why there's a town square in every city. You know what I'm saying? You got Times Square. Okay. So you have Times. Mind if I chime in? Go ahead. Pertaining to the square, I wonder if that has ties to the phrase be there or be square. Haven't looked into that, but that's something worth looking into. That's definitely something looking into. But the square, it doesn't hold the same sacred weight that it did in pre-Adamic civilizations. Even in later on, we when we built boxes, because we have a reality that's infested with squares. Literally, it's like a grid. It's like a motherboard. We're infested with squares. But even in our more modern times, even though we built buildings that had squares, we did put intricate applique, so when the energy would hit the buildings, it would still flow, even though the building had 90-degree angles. If you look up the culture of Tartaria, you'll see how those buildings were done and the applique that was put on the outside of the building so that the energy could still flow. The square represented uh, the creations that we created and, the existence beyond this dimension. And so, the square or rectangle is one and the same. It kind of, it's been, I guess you could say, hijacked. Okay. I'm going to go over one more, which is very dear to me, which is the pentagram. And that's the five-pointed star. That's what it's also called. Um, it's been used, as you know, by various cultures, authentic and unauthentic. Um, they say it was founded in Mesopotamia, but actually the pentagram was founded during the era of Zeptepi. Okay. Stars are used in conjunction with the pentagram. You have the crescent, which modern day Islam has accosted that. Okay. As you know, over here in the West, um, they kind of hijacked that symbol when it came to the unofficial or the, um, I'll say, unofficial occult communities. Okay. It also represents a symbol of protection. In pre Adamic civilizations, it represented a symbol of protection from threats outside of the dimension. It also was a symbol of warning. Okay. Um, the number that's associated with that is the number 5. Okay. And so it wasn't until in recent times that now they're saying it represents the number 6, but in pre-Adamic civilizations it represented the number 5. Okay. um the pentagram represents 5 elements that makes up human beings, not humans but human beings, which is fire, water, earth, and excuse me, I'm sorry, it represents humans. Okay. um and that would be fire, water, earth, wind, and spirit. Um, so that that is trying to see if I want to go into the hexagram. Okay, I'm gonna do one more. Y'all kind of see why the triangle was such a the triangle and the circle was such a beloved symbol or shape. Shapes are shape. Modern humans or palm colored people call them shapes, but they were insignias. The original word for them was insignias or symbols. So we're going to talk about the hexagon. Okay. Um, it's a very unique symbol when it comes to sacred geometry because it can't be uh, the way because of the way it's drawn. Um, you can't draw it without lifting whatever instrument that you're using. Okay. Without repositioning your pen or your pencil, whatever you decide to use. And it's the overlapping of two triangles, which represents the Um, it represents forms of forms of hexagrams according to the angles, the acute angles of the triangle and the six-pointed star. Okay. Um, it's considered as a mandala symbol. Okay. And recent Hindus has accosted this particular symbol, and they use it a lot with their temples. Um, it represents perfect state and balance. Okay. Um, it also acknowledges um, the prime creator in reference to ruling over the universe, which that wouldn't be the prime creator, but for some of the modern religions, they look at the individual or entity that rules over the universe as the prime creator. But the prime creator doesn't have to rule over anything. So that can be argued. Okay. Um it's also been used as a unicursal symbol. Okay. So without lifting your instrument, it's impossible to draw this particular shape or symbol. All right. And so that kind of concludes what you were asking me about in reference to shapes. Do you have any questions, further questions, or comments? I hope that's given you some type of insight.
Yes, it definitely does. I've, I took some notes on all the symbols that you mentioned, and I can see how a lot of the things that I come up with now are related to these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be utilizing them more effectively now that I know
Absolutely.
a little bit more of what it is that I'm representing or attempting to convey, what message I'm sending out to people who look at it. Because it's a language, right?
Yes, it is.
Um, so I want to be able to communicate effectively, and you definitely help me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we go in more detail with that. This would be considered like an introduction to colors, symbols, and signs. And that's the name of that particular class. It's called Colors, Symbols, and Signs. So this is a subject I definitely enjoy talking about um, because there's so much context that it's crazy how you can use one symbol or sigil and say so much. But I know that that's a class that you all will definitely look forward to, and what those that are giving the appearance that they're ruling the construct, it really opens up a whole new world of things that we look at every day, and it's gotten kind of monotonous in reference to losing its wonder. Um, you will see that it's not as mundane, if you want to call it that, as how we've been conditioned for these things that we've been taught through educational systems and stuff like that to be. Um, one symbol could open up a whole new world. One color, knowing the context, history, forbidden history of a color, shape, symbol, or sign can open up a whole new world. So I'm so glad that you asked that question, and I hope that I was able to help. And as I said, this is kind of like an introductory to signs, symbols, and insignias.